This is part 2 of a series sharing how Gwynn and I managed expedition travel with children. The first part, if you missed it, was all about pregnancy and babies. This time, we're moving on to toddlers, kids and young teens. And to prove that we are qualified to share this information with you is that we have 3 adult children, and all of them still want to go travelling with us.
So Gwynn, how are you?
I'm good, Gwynn.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, great to see you.
Dad, here are her shoes. The next thing it's thorns. The key thing with small children, think about it. Put yourself in the small child's situation. I'm talking, children from toddlers right up to teenagers. They're bursting with energy. They don't want to be sitting strapped in a car for hours on end, driving past boring scenery. Because remember, they don't see scenery and views the way we do.
No.
It doesn't interest them.
I remember going to the Richtersveld. All 3 of them were small, but all very active. And the moment we got into the national park, we stopped the car and there was a beautiful opening. We kind of needed a driving break, but we thought, we're going to have a break. Let's have a proper break. Open the car doors. The kids jump out with all of their toy horses that they had been galloping around the back seat of the car, and they started playing. I remember it was lovely. We just watched them for like half an hour. We just watched them playing in the dirt with their horses.
Oblivious to this magnificent scenery, and it meant nothing to them. They're kids. They really don't care about the view. So keep that in mind. Lots of breaks. Let them get out the car. Let them run.
Yikes.
That's when serious coffee got on.
No, Katie is going to pitch.
In the circle. Tom? Good? Wait, Thomas, don't touch.
Don't touch him.
Jonathan.
Now, can you share with me what was supposed to happen, Charlotte?
Well, I think it's an old folklore that they say they think it's a snake and they won't move over the edge there, but bang goes the theory.
Give them activities. Feed them. Keep them fed while they're in the car. I used to travel with a huge big Tupperware at my feet, and it was stuffed with everything from pure sugar junk to dried fruit.
But the trouble with the sugar, of course,
they would bounce off
off the roof of the car. So you had to be a bit careful with that. But it was a mixture.
It was a mixture of stuff, and I would, listen to what was going on in the back and decide, okay, it's time. And I would toss something to the back, and they would be like,
and quiet them down for half an hour, 30 minutes.
They're quiet.
They're sorted for half an hour, and then you do nothing. And then you wait for it. You wait for it to come back up again, and then you would measure it a bit, and say, okay, time for something else.
Yeah.
And then time eventually. Okay, it's getting too much now. Time for a break.
Yeah.
So you have to allow that in your planning. You're going to need more time to get from A to B than you would normally do to allow for breaks. Otherwise, you go bonkers.
Give me the pillow back. Down, down.
Yo, look at that view.
Yo. Get over me. We're gonna die.
The other thing, the dynamics in your family. We had 3 girls, the youngest being Kate. Kate was a stirrer. It didn't matter who she sat next to. She would wind that person up. But most often, the person that allowed herself to get wound up was Stephanie. So if Kate was in the middle, she and Stephanie, eventually they would be...
There were times, there was more than one time, where I would stop the car. I'm calm. Stop the car. Gwynn in the back. And you would say, fine, yeah, because you realised it was, and it
It
actually
was
worked.
that or put poor little Erin in the middle, and so that meant Erin would have to drive.
So Gwynn
the
would
middle.
sit in the middle in the back, Erin would be in the front, and the two troublemakers would be separated by Gwynn in the back.
But I must tell you, I remember when we were travelling in England, and we were going down to Sandringham. All of us were in the car.
But
And
older now.
Older, yeah. Everybody was late teens, early 20s. Maybe not early 20s, but certainly late teens. And this started again. Steph and Kate. So out. Erin in front, Mum in the middle. So
And we had
here
a
I'm
tiny
sitting-
little Yaris.
Yeah, so I'm in the middle, and Kate starts with me. I got wound into it. Eventually, I was licking her, and she was trying to climb out the car. It was
very-
just dessert.
No, it was actually quite
absolutely
funny. No,
just
it was actually
dessert.
it was actually
Anyway,
very, very funny.
so the point here is, you know the dynamics of your kids. Don't let the good one always end up in the middle seat because the other two are, behaving badly, because that doesn't make for
There's a bit of resentment eventually happens.
a bit
and
of resentment. Yeah. Okay. So
Right, we're going to Matzatling Pan.
Another thing that we found very effective in getting cooperation from the children was getting them involved, not only in setting up camp, but actually making decisions for everyone.
You'd like to camp here?
I want to camp here.
If they feel responsible for decisions being made, then they'll take responsibility for the success of those decisions. I remember once being in the Kalahari. We were running short of water and we had a rainy day. All hands on deck collecting water.
Katie, you've got some.
Thank you. Yeah.
They had an absolute ball.
It's gonna come.
And an occasion where I got them to pack my roof rack.
We have lost
And we did actually lose something off the rack.
1, 2, 3, 4. We've lost 2 chairs up the steep climb. They slid off the back. So we'll have to go back really slowly and stop halfway down and fetch them.
My mistake was that I didn't check their work thoroughly enough. No big deal. We strapped it back on. And there is nothing quite like these moments for teaching children about the world.
Hello, Katie.
We're going to get some coals for our bread.
About people, about cultures, about other ways of doing and thinking about things. Having them see how other people live helps them appreciate the way they live,
What you got there, John? Morning.
gives them goals,
Look, he forgot his
Some
nose.
back footprints walking
creates ambition.
here early this morning here. It was after the rain last night.
Yeah. Yes, I want to output me in the video.
And me also.
We too. You want?
another good thing that for traveling, this is still in the car with your kids, is audiobooks. We listened to a lot of audiobooks with the kids. Before the days of audiobooks, I used to read to them. I read them The Hobbit
We
while
had a
we
tape
were
recorder.
driving.
We had a tape recorder with a cassette player. We had to just
Yeah.
put in the seat between them in the back with a story. We did that.
Yep. Or I'd read to them.
Yep.
Or audiobooks. Audiobooks are fantastic.
So how do you find an audiobook that all 3/5 in the car will want to listen to?
Well, I would go for the classics. I would definitely go for the classic.
Who
great
chooses it?
story. Mom and Dad.
Okay, right. Just clear that up. You made the decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would decide.
It wasn't
Well,
a
it's
debate,
basically what we were allowing them to listen to anyway.
and what they were listening to anyway. And you decide there was not a debate.
Yeah.
You would just start reading.
Yes.
That was it.
We used to travel with friends who homeschooled.
We homeschooled too for a while.
We homeschooled for a while too. But it was great because we would say, right, now we're going to learn something about this. We would set up a little table, and for an hour we would learn something about the rocks or the lizards, and then send everybody off to go and find.
It was good, actually.
It was good.
It was
they
really good.
really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And they learned something about where they were and what they were doing. So that was a great one for activities for when your kids, because sometimes the places that you're going to, if it's got a place where they can swim, magic. That can keep them, you know, happy for hours. But if you've just arrived in a place like we are, there's not much here for kids to do. They've run around, they've climbed a tree. What else is there? They soon get bored. So that's why it's a nice idea to have those kind of activities. Okay, well, let's talk about some risks of traveling with kids. We've kind of touched on some of them, but if you think about what are the big risks of traveling with kids, getting sick, getting injured, boredom, because that could drive you to get sick and injured as a parent because they drive you crazy. What other risks?
So how do we actually handle those? Because it's the obvious thing, take a first aid kit. We would always take a good first aid kit, and it was always used.
Yeah.
Constantly.
There was always somebody
You know.
who's had a scrape, had a
You know.
bump, had a...
But the other part I found that with the girls, which was really valuable, and this is kind of moving off the risk thing, but it's because I was thinking about first aid kit, and that was part of it, and we would allow them access to it. We wouldn't necessarily just give them we would give them the first aid kit instead. They sort it out and watch them figure it out for themselves, as opposed to okay, do this, and then but you just give them a few pointers, but let them be involved in the camping. Let them. I remember we were in the Kalahari. We had a 4-vehicle convoy, and I was shooting a thing called Working in the Wilderness in the Kalahari. And little Kate, I remember there's a little shot, it's one of my favourite shots. You're pulling her out of the back of the G-Wagon, and she's going, oh, toins. And she was scared of the thorns, because there were some quite prickly thorns, you know, with their tiny little feet. But after a while, around the campsite, once they were comfortable with the environment, and it was a reasonably safe environment, we gave them rope, we gave them a toolbox which we could take the center out of, and they were they organized, and they put up a line. I suppose I might have helped a bit, but it was their idea. And they put Kate in this bucket, and they were swinging her, you know, and all we had to do, I mean, this might be specific to Africa, but all we had to say to them is, you're going to stay in the confines of the camp. You are not wandering off, because there were wild animals. So we had a specific risk at that specific place where we had to manage it. And one of the things we would do in the bush, for example, with kids, is if there are predators around, the predators are going to be looking at the kids, not you. So you have to. I mean, this sounds a bit gory, a bit, you know, but it's fact. Okay, so if you're around the campfire, don't have a kid on the end.
You put the kids in the middle.
Watch
any herd of animals. They'll always have, the elephants will always have the babies in the middle. There's a reason for it.
Yeah, and what that'll do to the wild animals, wild animals will need surprise if they are going to attack. They're going to need surprise. If they haven't got the element of surprise, watch hunting in the wild. If they don't have the element of surprise, they just walk away. They're not going to catch the prey. So in an environment like a camp where you know that there are wild animals around, keep the kids in, adults out, kids in, and be vigilant. Just be aware of what's going on. And when you start hearing noises and when you start seeing eyes, immediately act. Bring the kids together and make sure that they're safe. No animal's going to come in. No animal's going to come in to attack with adults around. It's not going to happen. But if the kid is on the outside, they're in danger. It sounds a bit gory, but I heard a story once, and it was pretty gory. And the child survived it, by the way, but it just highlighted the fact that it can be very dangerous in some parts of Africa if there are wild animals around. You've got to be smart. There's a risk. Snake bite.
We used to teach the kids that they had to wear shoes. Okay, shoes were non-negotiable.
Yeah.
They needed
In the bush, no
needed
sandals.
to have proper shoes. And if they were going to pick up a stick, for example, we always taught them, you kick it first. It doesn't matter how big or how small. The rule is you're going to pick up a stick,
Kick
you
it.
kick it. If there's a scorpion or a snake or something
Yeah.
lurking there, they will, dislodge it and
Never step over a log. We teach them never step over a log. If there's a big log and you're going for a walk, never step over a log. Step onto the log and look down. Then go over the log.
because there could be a snake there.
Could be something under there. So there's these little things that we taught them, and they loved this lesson. They loved learning bushcraft.
Yes, they
Kids
did.
just-
It made it all exciting.
Gee, kids love bushcraft. Absolutely love it. How to make a fire. Kate told me the other day that she was, and this was a story 5-7 years ago in England. She met some friends. They were in a little cottage, and there was somebody there trying to make a fire, and there was just plumes of smoke everywhere, and and she walked in and she said to me, I literally rolled my eyes like I could see you do, me rolling eyes, seeing this person trying to make a fire. She said within 3 minutes I had a beautiful fire, because we had taught them to make a fire. All three of my daughters can make a fire.
We're making the fire for tonight. We are going to cook sausages, and we are going to make some sweet corn.
They don't even think about it. They make a fire, fine, make a fire. You know what I mean? They loved learning it. They absolutely loved the bushcraft part of camping.
And it's good because they learn respect. When you're being told as a child, you are vulnerable here.
The tent where we will all be sleeping tonight.
So you're not the king of this jungle. When you've got to stay close to the camp. When we say to you, come here, you come here. It's good. Kids need to know that where they are in the pecking order. And when you're traveling in remote places where there's risk, kids need that discipline.
Just a small report from our camping site at Serendella. An elephant has entered the site. He's about 75 to 100 yards away from the tent, and he's really massive. Just taking some film record here. And he's slowly moving forward, hiding himself behind some bushes.
And they need to know they will have so much more fun if they know that the adults are responsible, and the adults are they don't have to worry about things if they trust that the adults are worrying about the things. So that makes the kids so much happier. And you mentioned helping around the campsite. Absolutely. We've got going back to Kate at that trip when she was worrying about the little thorns. She had these beautiful little pink boots that I bought for her. And we've got a scene of her trying to crush cans.
Yes. Another reason for burning the food cans is that it burns away the smell, so your rubbish doesn't stink. Because we would compress our cans, crush a can, put them in the rubbish. Sometimes we would put them in the fire to clean them, to get the smell, rid of the smell, and then we would take them out and crush the cans. So she saw me, or whoever, John or whatever, crushing cans, and she decided to try and crush some cans.
I did wash it by myself.
So get them working around the campfire. Get them working in the camp. If there are things to do, if there's water to fetch, or go and fetch some firewood or do whatever. Get them working.
There was a scene in the Working in the Wilderness where I decided the film was teaching about vehicles in the wilderness, and we'd been driving through quite long grass, and I thought good time to do a little piece about the danger of grass catching underneath the fire, a vehicle catching in the exhaust and lighting and igniting, and you could easily lose a vehicle this way. Called Steve on the radio and said, I'd like to stop here. I'm stopping on the straight bit. Just bring the camera up to my window. I'm going to talk about the fires, and then we're going to walk to the back of the vehicle, and we're going to walk to John.
I thought we'd better check the vehicles for grass, fire. It's the first clear patch I could for a couple of Ks.
Good. Stop the car. I climb out of the G-Wagon, and I can smell it already.
Yeah, on the prop shaft. Here's a whole heap for you lot. Pull it out here. Yeah, it's not just a joyride, you know, kids.
You just climb underneath.
Yeah. But I need to get a stick or something and pull all this out. We must get this out.
You know, defenders are generally not bad at this. You're in good shape. Let's check mine.
The G-Wagon had a very serious design fault when it comes to this. The exhaust goes over, through a tube, over the diesel tank. And the grass gets jammed in there. And it was about to ignite. It was everybody was involved in sorting the problem, because all the vehicles, except for the two defenders, had grass, quite bad grass, and everybody got involved. And they loved it. They absolutely loved taking responsibility for a particular task that was important to our safety. They liked it. Made them feel good, made them feel adult.
Traveling with kids, giving your kids this opportunity to get out and to see another side of life, it is so good for them. The memories that they will have, the character development, it is so good for them. Anyway,
okay, we should wrap it up.
There's one thing I
yeah.
wanted to talk about was sickness.
Right.
People get sick. It happens. And if you've got a good first aid kit, and you know it's not life-threatening, and you don't have to rush to the ER, just roll with it. Just roll with it. Don't let it become a huge stress. There's nothing you can do. You're out in the middle of nowhere. It's not life-threatening. They've got a bit of a runny tummy. As long as no one's dehydrating and needs to be airlifted out, don't get yourself all stressed. Roll with what happens. I remember another trip, we were coming back from the Transkei, and obviously somewhere along the line the girls had either eaten something or they'd picked up a stomach bug, and we were on the way home, and the stomach started, and they started vomiting.
Over the inside of the car.
Over the inside of the car. And we were trying to find whatever we could find, bags and...
Hang on. But just before that happened, we'd stopped at a petrol station. I'd filled up, I'd bring the tanks, and if you buy a certain amount of diesel, they give you a free Coke. But they'd run out of Coke, so they gave us a glass bowl.
Which was the weirdest thing. We looked at this and thought, what?
And we put this glass bowl in the car. Not 30 minutes later, this glass bowl was the catch-all for the vomit.
Eventually, even the glass bowl didn't work. And I have this mental image. I have this mental image of Erin with her head out the window like a dog. Did I show her head? And she just had this trail. You know when you see in those gravityless where bubbles float and food floats.
Slow motion, everything's slow motion.
I've got this image in my head of Erin with her head out the window like a dog with this vomit just trailing behind her. It was terrible. It was a terrible, terrible trip home.
And I remember pulling into Oudtshoorn town on the way home.
Trying to wash
there was a service station, and I pulled in and there was a tap, and it was the G-Wagon again, and opened the doors, and you took these disgusting children out to go and hose them down, and I luckily had a waterproof seat cover on the back seat, which I carefully took out, hosed down, and put straight back into the back of the car. And we survived. It was pretty terrible.
But keep your sense of humour.
Was that when we saw the UFO?
Yes, it was when we saw the UFO.
Yeah, another story. We saw a UFO.
So really, at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing with travelling with kids is if it is a genuine life-threatening situation and you have to get your child to a hospital, that's a different ball game, and I'm not equipped to help you with that. I mean, you would have your satellite phone, you would have all those other things that you had prepared so that you could get in the help that you needed. I'm talking about just the day-to-day rough and tumble of being with kids. The key takeaways here are: be prepared, have stuff you know your kids need, keep your sense of humor, know that in 10 years time you're going to look back at this and laugh
or make videos
have stuff, have activities, have things for them to do, engage them in the campsite, get them involved, make them part of it,
engage them in the wildlife, engage them in the detail of the ground, the ants, all of the stuff that's happening.
Send them to go and find rocks or specific seed pods or whatever it is. Engage them in it, and just be sensible. Be sensible. Would you let them do this at home? Yeah, I would. Then let them do it there. You wouldn't let them do it at home? Don't let them do it there.
Or do it with them.
Or do it with them. Yeah.
Right.
But traveling with kids, you will look back on it and it'll be some of your fondest memories with your kids. And when you all gather around as adults later around the Christmas table, or at Thanksgiving or a family birthday, and conversation turns to old holidays and travel, your kids will just have the fondest memories, and they will love you for it.
And they will love you for it. They will love you and thank you for it. And if I think about my father, and the greatest gift he ever gave to me was to take me to the Okavango, and so I could experience genuine overland wilderness travel for myself.
We went to we're not a crocodile camp. We're at a place called Okavango Safari Lodge. Crocodile camp is not as nice as we remembered it. They've made it into a kind of a prison with palisades everywhere, and the camping area is terrible. We found a nice little place right on the river to camp, and Andrew and Martin had just come back from sailing out on the canoes for the first time.
Water is warmer than swimming pool out there. It's as warm as can be.
In the channel?
Yeah.
We're not sure if we're going to stay here very long, or maybe the whole time, because people say that the tsetse fly in Marimi is terrible, and that they actually had to leave because it was so bad. So we're now wondering, in fact, whether we shall go there. I've been bitten by a tsetse fly here already once.
Have you?
Yeah, tonight. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
I was bitten tonight by a tsetse fly. I know a tsetse fly bite. I was standing here under the tree, and it was dark, and
zap.
And of course, it affected my entire life profoundly. He did it because he took his quite young, and I was 12 when I first went to the Okavango.
It's not hot yet. The time is approximately 10 o'clock.
He did that massive favour for me, and I will be indebted to him forever. And that's my takeaway of taking kids out there. Travel makes for great kids.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. My dad used to travel a lot for his business into the wilds, and he would take me or my brothers, depending on who he could take on that particular trip. And we traveled extensively with my dad, and also it makes for a rounder, fuller life.
I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
So get out and do it.